Come on down.
All right. Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. My name is Elizabeth Pampalone, and I am the owner of Absolute Marketing. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so you guys can see. I'm also just going to put everybody up here so I can see. Okay, great. So I'm also going to have the chat up as well, and I do monitor that as we go through. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in there. I do actually look at that as we go. So feel free to ask questions there. And I will also pull up the Q&A just in case anybody does want to put a question there as well. All right, so my name is Elizabeth Pampalone, owner of Absolute Marketing, and we create 1 year of marketing content in 5 days. And these are all of the elements that you see here on this slide: branding, websites, social media, blogging, email marketing. Those are the 5 days. And we also have some alternate days, which is podcasting, memberships, courses, and video. So we're going to talk about podcasting, today. So let's go ahead and get started on this. I've been doing this for 20 plus years now at this point. So I really appreciate, all of the innovations that have happened in marketing recently. So I'm going to share a couple of those things with you today, especially around the area and idea of podcasting. And I find so many people that just come to me and say, I'm tired of marketing. I'm frustrated with it. I don't know what's working. I don't know what is working, what's not working. They don't really know where things are coming from for them. And sometimes they get caught up in, I've got to have social media. I've got to have, all of these things that everyone else is telling me I should have. And they're overlooking some of the things that could be their very best ideas. So I'm going to just pull this down really quick. Perfect. All right. So I want to talk today about podcasting specifically, and I want to kind of ease some of that frustration and also give you some ideas around what you can use podcasting for as a guest or as a host. So we're going to go through both of those. I do start with something though, which is the brand and the foundation of your company. You cannot have great podcast, a great social media presence, a great website. You can't have any of those things be really effective unless you actually have a good brand. This is not a logo. A brand is not a logo. Your brand is the soul and the essence of your actual company, and it needs to be given attention and time. And so when I work with someone, we spend an entire day on your brand. We talk about mission, we talk about vision. Even if you already have these things, I find a lot of people have them in the wrong order. They have the wrong words they're using. They might even have the mission and vision that's not even really what their company's about. And so we really dive deep into who are you, what do you do, and who are you sharing it with? And so if we can answer those 3 questions in that time period and create a logo, then we also create a piece of collateral. Maybe it's a business card or a flyer. And then I also like to create a 3rd or 4th piece of collateral, which is an ebook. So I think a brand is all of those things I just mentioned. It's not just that logo. And making sure that, your logo, your colors, that they mean something to your audience, your name even. You have to really make sure it's the right one. I had a company that I was working with a while ago, and they were a cleaning company. They wanted to be called Cleaning Plus. But what's the plus, right? It was kind of a good name because it told you what they do. But it was a little bit off as well because it didn't give me any kind of initial reaction where I go, oh, I need that. So I definitely want to impress upon you guys that if you haven't really worked on your brand, or you're a little iffy on it, or you're like, it's fine, it's been around forever, that's not a great way to be about it. If you're apathetic on it, if you're just saying, well, it's good enough, or I don't really know what else to do with it, or I don't want to change it because I'm afraid I'll lose clients, those aren't good places to be with your brand. You need to be in love with your brand and know that even if you get sick of it, because you might, because it's your brand, you're going to see it every day, all day. Even if you get sick of it, that it's still going to serve you and be the best that it can be for your clients. So, because they're not seeing it every day. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and move into this next piece. When we actually go into podcasting, we don't want to just randomly say, I'm going to start a podcast. Some people do that and they're successful, but I prefer to actually have a goal and a reason behind the podcast, whether you're being a guest or you're being a host. So we need to find that reason and that purpose. I was on 140 podcasts last year, and I did that between March and December of 2020. And my goal last year was to be on 100 podcast, and I got on 140, which was awesome. But my goal wasn't necessarily one of these. I wasn't trying to gain followers or anything like that, but I was trying to build credibility, and I was replacing in-person networking because we had that taken away from us. So I was trying to find a one-to-one, networking opportunity, which is me and the host, right? Or the guest, and also a one-to-many opportunity, which was me being a guest on someone else's podcast and talking to their audience. So that was the goal that I used for my experiment of trying to get on 100 podcasts. Some of them were good, some of them were bad. I'll share some of those stories as we go. Let's see. I want to talk about something in the chat here. I've changed my brand in the last 5 years whenever I made a pivot in my business. So you need to get an update. Yes. Sometimes you just need to refresh your brand to make sure that it's the most current for what you're doing now and what your business is now. When I build brands for people, just kind of go back to that, I try to make sure that it's something that no matter if they pivot, they still have something that's true to them, because you're the same person. You're going to keep going through life with your name, with your, your brand, your personal brand. And so typically once we're past the age of like 20, 25, we don't change our own personal brand very much. But our business and our activities and things that we do will change, but our personal brand won't. So I try to personally brand people who are like hands in all the pies, doing lots of things, like to do lots of things and change things up, so that they always have a personal brand that they don't have to worry about changing all the time. So it's a good way to give yourself a brand that you don't have to worry about changing pretty much ever. So again, my purpose for podcasting was to replace in-person networking and to build credibility along the way. The other things that are listed here, gaining followers, getting leads, and building SEO, were byproducts of my being on podcast and having my own podcast. So I want you to kind of pick a purpose if you're deciding to go into podcasting, whether it's as a guest or as a host. Pick one of these purposes and really set that in your mind as you're, in the forefront, so that you can actually see, you're not just going into it with a blindness. You're just like picking and choosing and okay, I'll do these things. You're actually doing it with a purpose. This is going to help you when you're choosing podcasts to be on. It's going to help you when you're choosing what your podcast will be about, etc. So make sure you have a purpose in mind. This number is a little skewed. There's more than this now. I haven't updated this one yet. I need to do that. It's around 4.2 million podcasts are registered online right now. These are individual shows, not episodes. So this is how many shows there are that are active currently and that are registered, online in some kind of directory somewhere, whether it's, iTunes or Listen Notes or anything like that. 4.2 million shows. Let's see here. Here we go. The US podcasting numbers. This is what I have. I don't know if I have international numbers in here, but the US ones that I have, there are 166 million people who listen regularly to podcasts, and 222 million people have actually heard of podcasting. So out of the country, in the US, we have about 340 million or something like 350 million people or something like that. That's a huge amount of how many people. Over half, about half, I guess, are actually listening regular to podcasts. And then we've got, more than half know what a podcast is and have heard of it. So this is huge. And this is something that I think people are missing out on who are looking at the traditional forms of marketing. And by traditional, I also mean social media. Social media is traditional at this point. And podcasting is not quite there yet. So podcasting's only been around for less than 20 years. And so I really think it's a Wild West at this point, which is a great time to get in on this type of thing. The average person, the average listener for a podcast listens to 8 shows a day. And this could be obviously more or less, but 8 shows a day is huge as well. I mean, you could be one of those 8 shows and they could listen regularly to you. So definitely, keep that in mind as you're looking at, running your own podcast. All right, I'm going to talk about the art of being a guest. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to talk about why is being a guest important? How should you be pitching? When should you be applying? Where should you be applying? What should you be saying? And what should you be, or how should you promote once you've actually been on as a guest? So we're going to go through those things really quickly. The first thing I would say is you need to have a one sheet, and this goes back to your brand. You need to have a brand set up. And if you're going to get to podcasting, you really need to have those 5 days out of the way, right? The 5 things I mentioned at the beginning. You need to have your brand solid. You need to have a great website that's easy to use and easy to navigate for the consumer, that's simple and clear. You need to have great social media presence and some following, not a huge, doesn't have to be huge, just some. You need to have a great blog or some kind of, weekly, monthly content that's going out, that's your content, that's bigger than social media posts, right? And you need to have your email marketing running. It needs to be running. You need to be using your RSS feeds from your content that you're producing, whether it's blogs or podcasts or whatever, or your videos, whatnot. You need to have that running and being fed into your email marketing. So that's going out to your customers. Those 5 days should be out of the way and done before you get to this point, because those 5 things support what we're going to talk about next. If you don't have those 5 things done, you're going to find this really difficult and you're going to struggle. So I want to just give you that as a heads up, that you need to have a solid brand, a website that converts, your social media, scheduled and running on a regular basis. If you're not doing it every day yourself, and you need to have some content going out, you need to have email marketing running. So now that we've got those things in place, we're going to look at this one sheet. I actually created a one sheet in my website. If you go to getabsolutemarketing.com/press kit, I'll put that in the chat here. You can actually see my one sheet. So I'm going to pull that up. Oops. I usually have it pulled up and I forgot to. Here we go. So this is my one sheet. I have a couple of logos of the different shows that I've been features on. I have a short bio, which if I come back here, I see my bio, my short bio, and my name. And also with my name, I don't think I did it here. Sometimes I like to put a phonetic spelling on here as well, because sometimes people don't know how to say your name. So sometimes that helps. I have a headshot. I actually have multiple headshots. I'll go back and show you that in a second. I have expert topics. I like to put fun facts in because sometimes people who are interviewing you, they don't always want to just say your bio, even though my bio, I've really crafted a specific way and it's very, very short. They get a lot of very long bios and people going on and on about their education and all that stuff. And so I like to throw something fun in there that they can pull if they feel like it would meet their audience's needs. Some audiences are very technical and they want the facts, and other audiences want, a little bit more interaction and touchy-feely and how can we connect and things like that. And then I also put my logo in there that they can download, not the one that's on my website. It's a special sized logo for them to use. Oh, my light went off. Hold on. There we go. A little bit bright.
That looks good. It happens.
So then I have my website link there as well. I have my social links, and I have some freebie and some opt-in links there as well. So I'm going to go back here so you can kind of see what that looks like. And I've got my headshot, but this is not the headshot that they normally use. You can actually choose a headshot with this button. It takes you to an entire folder in Google Drive that's public that you can actually choose one of the headshots. And I have various ones in there of different poses, different sizes. Some are circles, some are squared, all that kind of stuff. You can choose a logo as well. Maybe you want my black, all black logo, all gray logo, all white logo. Maybe you want my full color logo. So there's options there as well. And then of course my website link, my socials. I actually only have LinkedIn. It's the only social that I use. And then I have my freebie link for my membership, my toolkit link, And then I have my fun facts, and one of them isn't showing up for some reason. Oh, no, it's being weird. Okay. But I have my fun facts here. I've got my screen a little tiny, so let me just pull it this way so I can see it. There we go. And I've got my speaking topics with descriptions and if they want more in depth of what I would talk about, if they want to see what my audience takeaways are and all that stuff, it's all listed there. And I've had requests for people to tell me, well, what questions should I ask you? Which I don't like giving. I do not like giving that, because I'd rather us just have a conversation and have it be real. But some people really, they're like, you can't be on my podcast unless you give me your questions, blah, blah, blah. And so I reluctantly have this questions to ask download that they can, ask me if they really wanted to. And they're questions that I wrote that I know I can answer very easily and get my message across with them. So that's my one sheet, and it's not a printable. I have a printable for corporate speaking engagements. Now, that is very specific to them. So I've tailored it to them. And typically you only need a printable for corporate speaking, because that person's going to print it. They're going to take it to their boss. They're going to show it to their boss, and they're going to bring it back to their desk. And, that whole thing needs to go on. But when it's for podcasts, you don't have to do that. They can look at this website. It's much easier if they have a website to go to. So that's what I put into the one sheet. And I will say, let me actually do one thing here. I think we are missing, sorry about that. We're missing a couple of slides here. So hold on one second.
I was gonna say, do you need help with anything?
No, I'm just missing a couple of slides. I think I turned them off or something here.
That's okay.
All right. Oh yeah, here we go. I'm gonna go back to
this. You got them. You got it.
There we go. Yeah. So I wanted to go back to this one, and I wanted to kind of just go over a few things. If you want to be a guest, this is a really great way to promote your business without promoting your business. Okay. So we're not here to sell. We're not here to, really force our message into someone's podcast and say, well, you have to hire me, and that's just the way it's going to be. So when you're pitching, if you have an actual one sheet done, it makes it so easy to pitch. You can just use all that information, fill in their form, and you've pitched. You're done. The other thing you can do is when you apply, you can put your bio, because they always ask for that. And you can put your link to your press kit or your one sheet there with your bio in the bio section. That way you can say, if you need more details about me, you can find them here. So if they're really interested in you, they're going to look at that and go, oh my gosh, she did all the work for me. I don't have to do anything. This is going to be a great guest. So it also kind of levels you up as a guest for them to actually pick you, because they are scrutinizing a lot of different people before they actually choose someone. And then where you apply, I have a couple of resources. I'm going to share a free thing towards the end, and that has all my resources in it. So you'll get that towards the end. It'll have like really specific websites to go to apply that are free, which is nice. And as far as like what you should be saying on the podcast, I think it should be organic. It should be about what you do and how you help people. But it shouldn't be a commercial, right? You should be actually teaching them something, giving them some knowledge, giving them some wisdom, sharing your story, whatever that might be. But you're not going to say, if you work with me, then, these are the things I'll tell you. I was at a conference today, and all the guy talked about was he had all these great ideas and how he can improve your health and all these great things, but he never actually got to what those were. He just was like, but they're great and I know them. And everybody was like, well, how do we get them? And he was like, well, you have to find someone like me. And he was like, wait a minute. You were supposed to tell us something we could take away and use. So when you're on a podcast, make sure that you at least have 1 to 3 takeaways for them to actually use and implement that day. And then how should you promote a podcast once you've been on it? I like to say I'll do web, social, and email. So I have my LinkedIn social. I'll promote it there. I'll also set it up to go out in an email to my clients, and I'll also promote it on my website. I actually do cheat a little bit with this. So my cheat is that I put it in my website as a blog post. The blog post gets added to my is an RSS feed. And that RSS feed gets sent to my social and to my email, and that all happens at once. So the only thing I really do is put it in my website as a blog post and schedule it. And then all the other stuff happens because I've done automation setups, which is what I do with my clients all the time, because we don't want to do more work than we have to, right? So if you automate that, I can do 3 things at one time, and it makes it really easy to promote podcasts that you've been on as a guest. So any questions about guesting before I move on to hosting?
One question that comes to my mind is, what kind of software are you using to automate this process? Because there's so many out there. So I'm just curious, what's your favorites?
So they're actually all in the free gift I'm going to give everybody. And I use a social media scheduler that has RSS capabilities, and I use an email marketing tool that has RSS capabilities. So I set them up in each of those tools separately, and they automatically do the work for me.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Just put them in the chat and we'll get them on the next slide.
All right. So this is about the honor of hosting. And I actually host my own podcast. It's called the Absolute Marketing Podcast. It is a 2-minute podcast. So it's 2 minutes long. It takes me about 20 minutes to produce, record, edit, schedule, and promote, essentially. All of that, it takes me 20 minutes to do the whole thing, from topic all the way to finished product that's in the website, ready to go and going to be scheduled and put out, whenever the next one comes out. I was doing them every week. We have since changed that strategy, and we're going to be doing them in a different cadence going forward, but it's been really, really helpful. It helps me to put out consistent content. It's very easy and quick. I have found a lot of tools for podcasting that make things so quick and so fast. I actually started podcasting in 2014 as a host, and I was doing 1-hour sessions with people, and I was interviewing people, and it was taking me so long to edit, and I couldn't pay anyone to edit because the podcast wasn't making me any money. So it was more of like just a content thing for me. And so I quit. I said, I can't sustain this. It doesn't fit in my lifestyle. It doesn't fit with what I'm trying to accomplish. But when I started the podcast last year in January of 2020, I said, what can I fit into my lifestyle? I can talk for 2 minutes about anything, right? I can talk for 2 minutes about anything. So I said, I can do that. And now I've got this editing problem again. How am I going to edit, even if it's short? How am I going to do that? Because I don't want to pay someone because it's not making money. It's right. It's a content piece. How am I going to actually do that? I found a company online, which is in the gift I'm going to give everybody, that actually will change the way that you edit your podcast. They do all the audio leveling. They do almost all of the intro, outro stuff. I mean, it does all of it for you in an automated like AI system. So it's amazing. And I really, really love it. So I'm going to share that towards the end here. So I think being a host is important because we can set the agenda, right? When we go on someone else's podcast, it's their agenda and we're following along. And then knowing what your agenda actually is, and this is more of a technical question. I think the first question is more about like the agenda in general, like why does this podcast exist? What is my overall goal with it? Am I going to educate people? Am I going to inspire them? Am I going to share other stories with them, etc.? But the agenda I talk about in the second question here is really about how do you run the podcast? It's almost like running a TV show or a news program or whatnot. You need to have timestamps, right? So what is the first thing you hear? What is the second thing you hear? How long are each of those pieces? What is your music like? What kind of mood does that evoke? All of this stuff goes back to your brand, by the way. So if you're running a podcast, sometimes people have separate brands for their podcasts that they host, but I actually don't like to do that. I like to build the podcast to be with your brand. It should be a partner of your brand, rather than having it be a separate piece that you have to then market and organize and have socials for and all that stuff. It should be a part of what you're doing. So I go back to the branding on that. That's for the business or the personal brand and bring that over. Cause then you're using the same colors, you're using the same logos, all that stuff. But the agenda and having like what music we're going to use and what's our intro going to sound like, and where are we going to direct people if they want more info, all of that goes back to your brand, having a great website, and all that stuff. So, and then who should you be interviewing? I actually don't interview very many people. I actually have my guests come on and do my agenda that I have written out. I handpick them, and I don't take applications. I pick them myself from people that I've met, and I will give them, this is the timeline. First we do this, then we do this, then we do this, then we do this, then we do this. And it should be about 2 minutes. I don't make them do 2 minutes, but I kind of highly suggest that it's 2 minutes. So I give them what should be done and accomplished in that 2 minutes. If they want to do 10 takes, if they want to do 1 take, that's up to them. They send me the file. I listen to it, make sure that it fits my brand and my overall agenda. And then if it does, I edit it, add my beginning and ending and all that stuff, audio level it in my program, and then I schedule it into my system. As far as when you should be posting, I honestly don't think it matters for podcasts because people listen to them at all times. I think it should just be consistent. So if you're doing every week, do every week. If you're doing every other week, and so on, every month, whatever that is, just be consistent. The promotion is really the same, excuse me, as the other way. So when I do my guest promotion, I promote these the same way. I put them into the podcasting software. That's the podcast host. They give me an RSS feed. The RSS feed is embedded on my website. So you can always go to my website and listen to the podcast. It also gets sent out to, iTunes and all that stuff. They do that automatically, which is nice. The system that I use does that automatically. So I have that linked as well in the free gift. And then I have the RSS feed automatically send out an email to everyone, automatically post it to social for everyone. So I'm not doing a ton of work except my 20 minutes to get my episode out to the world. So, are there any questions on podcasting hosting? Anybody have any questions?
I haven't seen any in the chat. Karen, have you seen anything in chat? Oh, nope. So you're
all right. So the thing I'm going to share with you today is actually called the Pro Toolkit, and we merged with the Pod Scout, so they're one and the same now. We purchased that company earlier this year, and they were doing some great work, and so now we've incorporated that into our podcasting day. So remember I mentioned at the beginning, we do the 5-day sessions. Well, now we have the podcasting day, which is an additional session you can add or swap out for one of the other days if you want. And we actually help people create a podcast in one day. We actually help them to build their podcast brand off of their current brand that they have. We help them to name their podcast, create their cover, build out their, RSS feed stuff and all their automations and all that. Get them into the directories of other podcast things like the Google directory, Apple directory, things like that. And we also help them to tag their podcast in a certain way so that they get found correctly. And then we help them record 1 to 5 episodes, depending on how long their episodes are. And it's really, really fun. And the Pro Toolkit is what I'm going to show you right now. If you go to my website, which is getabsolutemarketing.com, you can go to the top and it says Get the Pro Toolkit, and it's right here. You can just sign up for it. It's free to you guys, and it will give you every single tool that I use for everything from the podcasting stuff to my software for invoicing, to how I take payments, to my email marketing software, my social media software, everything is in there. And I have an explanation of how I use each one. I also have, I'm going to answer your question in just a second, Heidi. I also have a software in there that allows you to create privacy policies, your terms and conditions, and your disclaimers, your end user license agreements. Those are things that take lawyers like hours and hours to do. They cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And then once they're built, they have to be constantly updated by the same lawyers because the laws are constantly changing in the US especially. So there's the company here in Florida. It's a team of lawyers, so they're US based, and it would be based for US. I think they've just opened up Australia now, by the way. And they basically have teams of lawyers in different countries, and they will help you to fill out a questionnaire. And then once you fill out that questionnaire, they will give you a privacy policy or a terms and conditions or whatever it is you need that's required by law for your country. So in the US, privacy policy is required by law for websites. Every website has to have a privacy policy. And you can be cited by that if you don't. And then basically they do that policy for you. You put some code in your website, and then your policy just like appears. And then you never have to update it again because you pay your yearly fee, which is very minimal. And then they update it for you because that's their job. So you're not paying a lawyer every time the law changes. One, your lawyer doesn't know every time the law changes because that's not their whole business, right? They're not worried about privacy policies. But you also don't have to keep up with it yourself because, I mean, don't we have enough to do? So things like that, they can just save you so much time, headache, and like basically having insurance for those kind of things are all in this toolkit. Heidi has a question. Should I save my audio files in a podcast cloud or podcast host or specific location? So the audio files that I generate, I'll just give you my little secret. When I create my my actual in episodes, the piece that's just me talking and you know, my actual episode information, not the intro outro, that's already in my podcasting editing software, but the actual information that I say, the topic, whatever, I record that on my phone. And I use it like a mic. I hold it, you know, like this, and I record. I always hold it to the side, by the way, so you don't get the, you know, you don't get that, right? So you hold it to the side and you just talk, and you can record whatever your episode is about. This is if you're doing solo episodes. And then I take this file, put it in my computer, then I put it into my editing software, which is online. Then I take my editing software, it makes the file look, you know, sound better. It gives it that audio leveling and background noise reduction and all that stuff. It does all that by itself. Then I take that file and I send it to my podcast host. You have to have a podcast host in order for your podcast to live online and be available to all the podcast directories. So if you want to have a podcast, just like having a website, you got to have a host to do it, right? So it's the same concept. I take my editing software, says, do you want to send this to your host? I say yes. And it sends it over there. And then I schedule it with a date, make sure the title looks good. And, you know, there's some notes in there about what the episode's about. My notes are usually about 1 to 2 sentences long. They're very, very short. Because that's all that they really show and in most things anyway. I don't do like tons of show notes or anything. And then I just schedule it and it's done. So that's how I do it. And yes, I do just use my phone. Most phones these days have amazing microphones and cameras. So you really don't need, you know, a fancy mic like this one. But I do use this fancy mic because when I'm on a computer, this is a much better sound quality. But because my editing software does such a good job, I mean, I just use this most of the time.
No, and people are just amazed that you use your phone, and I think it's great information. And I am thinking about ways of, I just literally, I had, when I was working with W4CY.com radio, they did all the bells and whistles and all the tools and had all that stuff for me. So now that I'm going back to doing it on my own, I'm learning the hard way of things, of how to fix it and pretty it up and all that. So this has been very helpful. So thank you for that.
There's almost no barrier to podcasting. If you can pay for your host and you can pay for this editing software, because I've looked at so many, I have vetted every editing software you can possibly think of. Computer-based ones, online-based ones, free ones, paid ones. I mean, I have downloaded all of them and I have used all of them. And this one by far is the best. I think it's like $30 or something a month.
Oh.
And I pay for it yearly. So I get it a little cheaper because you can pay yearly. And I actually have a discount that is in there. So when you go through that process, you should receive a discount. I think it's like 10 or 15%.
That's good. Thank you.
And then also with the host, if you have a good podcast host, I think that one's like $17 a month. So for less than $50 a month, if you're going to use your podcast for your business, then that's all you need to do. And you already have a phone, and that's all you need. That's it. And you already have a computer, probably. You're done. You don't need anything else. And so I think that a lot of times the overgrowth of software kind of gets in our way. And I like to just make things really simple and lower that bar so that there's no barrier. As much as you can get no barrier. Like I said, if you got $50, you got to still have the money for the podcast host, because unfortunately they do charge. But
Right.
as long as you have that amount to put into it. The other thing is for when you're doing your hosting and stuff, shoot, I was going to say something interesting. I can't remember right this second, but I will think of it. What is this series? Heidi says,
she wanted to know about if you South Africa and other countries, because we have people from like literally all over the globe. So
Yes.
is there software, would this software work well for all countries, or is there software you
Yes.
recommend?
So this software is international. For the only one that's not really international, but is like US and Australia right now, is the legal one, the terms and conditions one. That's the only one I don't have an alternative for. They do have some free ones out there that you could use, but they're not as fancy as what we were talking about. But for the podcasting, these are mostly international systems. They're actually built in other countries, and then they're just available to all countries. So
brilliant. Oh, thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to add, or do you wanted to?
Yeah, I think that was it.
Okay. Do you have the gift?
Yeah.
You want to share?
Yeah, this is it right here.
Right here. Okay.
It's got over 50 items in it of all the different things that I use, why I use them, how I use them. And I have vetted every one of them. So if it's in there, it's got some kind of discount or free trial or something. No, I don't like usually giving out this to just everybody. I'd kind of let people hunt for it, but I do want to give you guys this, because this, just having the right tool for the right job, is just so helpful. It's just so helpful. So
and there's so many good tools out there, but it's always good to have something that's reliable. And Gina has already posted the link, so make sure you grab that toolkit. So thank you, Gina, for being on top of it. We have an amazing team to work with. So if anyone have any questions, or otherwise, you go on with your commentary. Be available. But anyway, thanks, Tanya. But long story short, if you, Elizabeth, you have access to WP Study Group too. That's where you can also connect with many of our guests, and that's where they're making a lot of comments on there. So if you guys have any other questions and you think of it like over the weekend, oh, I wish I could have asked Elizabeth this or one of the other speakers, go to the WP Study Group and then drop a question in there, and our speakers will be happy to answer you there as well. Right, Elizabeth? You'll be happy to, or we'll connect.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm in there. Where is it again?
Oh, that's all right. If we have any questions, we can tell people to sign up for your newsletter, and that will get them on your list.
Yes,
true.
That's the best way for them to follow you. So we didn't expect our speakers to be answering questions in our groups, but
it's I just thought I'd give them an option. But anyway,
if you're not here live now, and then you'll have to ask.
You can definitely, if you sign up for the toolkit and you get that, I will, and you can actually reply to the email you get that comes from the toolkit. I will be happy to answer questions that way. And that way you also, like you said, get my emails. You're kind of up to date with what I'm doing. And you can also follow me on LinkedIn. And I do post a lot of things there. And we're going to be doing a new series in the new year with LinkedIn, and we're going to be doing videos every week. So it's really exciting.
Awesome. So can't wait. Be able to share that with me when you get that. So anyway, oh my gosh, you did a fantastic job, and really early too. So, but we really appreciate you taking out the time. We do not take it lightly. And you just did such a really good, simple job with explaining podcasts, even more than I expected. So thank you for that. So
and a lot of the freelancers here also, some of them have clients who have podcasts. So this could be transferable to helping with their clients and getting that support, for that purpose. We don't have many, freelancers who have signed up who actually have their own podcast. But if they're thinking of starting one, or they've got clients who are doing one, you can sort of definitely take advantage of this. So thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah. And it's not just about having your own either. I know a lot of people want to have their own. It's a big draw, but just being a guest, which is very low entry as well. You just put some stuff on your website. It says, here's my details, and you just start applying, which is free to do. I applied to over 500 to get on that 140. So there's there's a lot of work behind that, but there's a lot of benefit. Oh, I know what the last thing I was going to say, if I have just a minute.
Sure.
I actually was on a podcast. It was the podcast's second episode. So this guy had not barely started, and I was just not discriminating, right? I wasn't saying you have to have an audience of 10,000 before I'll be on your show or anything like that. And I didn't discriminate. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to chat with this guy. And at the very least, we're going to have a great conversation, and maybe we can collaborate at some point. I was on his show. And after the show, he was like, all right, well, great to meet you. And that was kind of it, and I was waiting for the episode to be launched. About 2 weeks later, he contacted me and he said, do you have time for a project? And I was like, okay, I've heard this same song and dance before. Someone wants you to put in some time, and they'll put in some time. And then maybe if you get paid, you'll get paid later. I was like waiting for that to come through. And he said, well, my city just got a ton of CARES Act money from the government for COVID. And he said, and they don't know what to do with it. It's for small businesses, but they have no idea what to do with it. He said, so I'm putting together a team, and we're all pitching in a different product so that we can give this to these people. And then we're all also giving them like 30 minutes of free coaching that goes with it. So I got paid to give these little products out. And I gave a social media course, which was like $120, and that's what they paid me. So I gave that to them. They started promoting it. I did my 30-minute coaching with each person. So I got paid for the product, the course, but I didn't get paid for the coaching, which I was fine with. And I said, well, what if somebody decides to book with me, even though I'm not selling them, I'm just telling them what their next step should be. And he said, well, that's fine. You can take business from this if you get it. So almost every single person booked with me that I spoke with, because I know if I talk to somebody, they're going to book me. It's just going to happen. And so, and I wasn't selling them or anything. They were just like, oh my gosh, you know what I need. You know what to do next. Let's just work together. And from that one podcast, that was the second episode, the guy had almost no followers. That one opportunity came through, and that made me around $15,000 plus renewing revenue for this year, the next year, from the client. One of the clients came back and decided to work with us again. So you never know where a podcast can lead, even just as a guest.
And it might not even happen right away either.
No.
It takes, and that's why I always say, just like you experience with me, we have an ongoing relationship. I don't just talk to you about podcasts and opportunities. We chat in between and make sure we check in with each other periodically. It's all about building those relationships. And when you build those relationships with the podcast hosts, you never know where those opportunities are going to be, just like Elizabeth was alluding to. So that's what we've been preaching all week. Well, I'm not preaching, suggesting. Okay, I gotta watch my wording. But anyway, before Mark says, you should have said something different. But anyway, I tease him. It's all good.
We tease each other.
We do it all in good faith, and in good. We don't take it too much to heart, because Mark and I understand where we come from on that one. So, it's like a big family. And it's really about collaborating too. I think that's what you're trying to say, is about collaborating and helping each other. So that's a good point. Now, I love how simple you laid it. Now I got the behind the scenes look of your podcast. And I actually was on Elizabeth's podcast, right? A little while ago. And she was a fantastic host. So highly recommend get her toolkit and get together with Elizabeth, get on that free 30-minute call if she still offers it, hopefully, and see if you guys can make a connection. So yeah, I love the confidence and knowing that the relatedness of Elizabeth's talk. Yeah, she did a very good job. So you've won some fans in your fan club, Elizabeth.
Well, awesome.